Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here, Private Lenders Podcast. We appreciate you checking out the show. Today we are talking about the 3 most common new lender mistakes. So we've been doing consulting for private lenders for how long now? 8-9 years, something like that when we did the first one, and a lot more so in recent years. And when people come to us, they could be in different spots of their business. Like sometimes they're further along, have a good amount outstanding, and they want to tighten up some systems and underwriting and other stuff. And sometimes people are newer in the game. They have some loans outstanding, but again, they know that they have some holes in their lending game and they want to tighten it up. And so we've been able to see the patterns over the years of what, like, if you're newer in the game, you're probably making, 2 or 3 of these most common mistakes.
Yeah, and the challenging thing about being a lender is, everyone kind of has their own kind of mindset on the way that they want to structure their operation. And a lot of people are just, there's so many different ways to do this, right? Some people, have a lot of their own money and they just want to responsibly deploy it. Other folks have maybe a little bit of money of theirs, plus they go out there and they try to raise capital from other capital investors. Some want to lend locally, some want to lend nationally. There's just so many different variations. But, Chris and I kind of came up with what we think are the 3 most common newer lender mistakes. And if you fall in this, in this situation, that's all right. Just adjust. And I know that's hard. And I think when we talk to a lot of lenders, really they gotta have to take a step back in order to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 steps forward. And, some of the advice that we also will give is, listen, if you want, continue to do some of the things that you're currently doing the way that you're doing it. But as you grow and as you expand and as you take on new opportunities and new clients, start being a little bit more conservative then. And some, you just don't know if you're newer in the game, you don't know if your deals are good or bad. You're assuming they're good because it just takes time to have realized losses, right? And I think what ends up happening is some lenders come into the game and they get into a position where they felt confident, but then as they're growing and they're scaling, they're doing more and more volume. They're like, you know what? I really need to tighten up my game a little bit. I need to tighten up a little bit because I, have things that are making me a little bit uneasy. Maybe they're starting to have some late payments or some defaults, or, they realize that they don't want to lend at high leverage. So, all right, let's start with number 1. What's the most common new lender mistake?
The most common one across the board, if you're doing this, don't feel bad because everyone starts this way, is giving too high leverage. The loan to values that you're doing on a given property is too high. And sometimes that loan amount number even comes from the borrower, which is a little bit backwards. We've seen this even recently working with a lender and going through some of their recent deals. And the loan amount came in an email from the borrower, which is not really the way lending works. It's not like you hit up your bank and be like, all right, the loan amount that you're going to give me back is $275K. And that's how it's going to go. Not the way it works. But it's super common because, and some of these top 3 mistakes will tie into each other a little bit. But when you meet some real estate investors and basically you're like, I'm a private lender, I have capital, I'm lending in these markets, like what have you. And they'll start being like, okay, here's what works. Like if you want to do deals with me, if you want to fund some of my deals, here's what they'll look like. And then the private lender's like, oh, okay, I guess that's the way this works. It's understandable. We know it. We see it all the time. And we're going to talk about the progression too, about how people start too high and what leads them to come down in leverage.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. And, don't get upset with yourself. But what was if I told you that, you came to me and said, hey, I'm looking to do a loan with no money down or high leverage, and I want, the cheapest terms in town. It's silly because a lot of lenders, they're lending 100% financing. Their current borrower comes to them and says, hey, I'm currently getting a loan of, so-and-so, if you can match it or beat it, I'll go with you. So it's a very low down payment and it's lower terms than a competitor. Of course you're going to get that deal, right? And guess
And
what?
it
You're going to
might
get all
be
the
accrued payments. It might
yeah,
be no money.
and accrued payments, so I don't have to make payments on the back end. I mean, of course, right? Like anyone will take that, right? And you're gonna have unlimited deal flow from the same borrower over and over and over, and then they're gonna tell their friends and they're gonna tell their family. And I think what ends up happening is that's when some of these lenders get scared of like, oh wow, like the borrower's not bringing any money to the table. They're not making monthly payments. And I'm not really making the money that I want on some of these things as well because the terms are cheap. Like if you think about it like that, you're like, oh crap. Like most people got into this business to deploy capital responsibly, themselves or investors, to make decent, high, good, safe returns on these things, not to potentially do aggressive, risky stuff, right? And the first lender should always be the absolute safest. If you're structuring these loans right to good borrowers with high down payments, like they should be, if you're structuring them right, the safest, position in the deal. And the real estate investor should have the most amount of risk. Well, if a real estate investor is not putting up any money and you're putting up all the money, who's got the majority of the risk? You do, for putting up all the money. So you got to be safe the way that you're structuring some of these things. So the reason that some of these hard money lenders are growing so quickly is, and stating, oh, hey, I don't even have to do any marketing. I just work by referral. It's because you're giving high leverage. You need to be careful. So what we'll see typically happens is year one, lenders are giving 100% financing. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh crap, I got millions of dollars on the streets right now, and the borrowers don't have much skin in the deal. So year two, we'll usually come in, talk to them or whatever, and then they're like, no, I can't have that. And we'll tell them to put down 20 or 30%, tell them to change the underwriting. They'll say, no, I'll never get deals like that. And it's like, yeah, you'd be surprised. You still probably will. So they're like, so then, they go in a little bit and they get the borrowers to put down 10%, right? So something's better than nothing. So they're doing 90 LTV deals instead of 100%. So that's year two. Then towards the end of year two, that's when they start having like some defaults and things like that, right? It takes time. Like if you write a loan today and you get paid, and you get paid points and stuff, 1 month later, you're like, hey, I'm happy. This worked. Let's do it again. Like you don't even know what you don't know, right? Because the deals at default takes time to do that. Okay, so towards the end of year two, they're like, oh crap, like I need to tighten up even more. I got some late payments. I have some defaults, 10% down. Like have some defaults that I might not make money on. I might lose money. Like then year three comes along. They're like, oh crap, I'm going to make these borrowers put down 20% or even more because I'm been in the trenches and I know what's going on. And I know that I have some bad defaults and I'm going to start losing some money if the borrower doesn't put at least 20, 30% down. So it takes time for everybody to do that. So again, like Chris said, if you're in this situation, don't be upset. Just kind of moving forward, try to work your way up to more conservative loans.
Yeah, because the reality is in this business, taking principal losses is not part of the model. Like if you earn good money on interest and fees and everything else, and it's rolling well for a while, and then you take some kind of noticeable principal loss in a default situation because you're given 90% or 100% financing and wipe out a whole bunch of the gains that you've made so far this year, that's not the model. It doesn't work that way. It's just not sustainable. So that one's super common. We wanted to touch on that first. And like Jason said, like if you realize that you've been giving too high leverage, you can adjust moving forward. Even if you want to keep certain borrowers who are top notch the way you've been doing it, the new people you can give, a proper like 20% down payment to.
Or more. I mean, that's minimal. Like our max loan is 80% of purchase, 100% of construction. And that's assuming an A+ bar, A+ property, A+ situation.
Well.
Yeah, everything. That's best case scenario.
Okay, on to number 2. Another super common mistake is not truly knowing the value of the properties that you're lending on. Now, it's fine to get a third-party opinion of value. In fact, you should, and we do. And it's good to have some third-party form like that in your file, especially if you have outside capital investors, whether it's a BPO done by a real estate agent, one of the national inspection and valuation type companies like Richer Values or Aspen, or even an appraisal. If you want to get appraisals, that's fine. That's a third-party opinion of value that should be basically confirming your own thoughts on knowing the property and underwriting it. The way we lend, we don't lend anywhere where we don't have MLS, and we're talking about residential properties here. Commercial is kind of a different animal, but just talking about resi stuff. Can you lend in markets where you don't have MLS? Yes, it makes it a little more challenging, but you should still be comfortable with your whatever tools you have in that area, public record, MLS, Zillow, a combination of all of these, arriving at a value yourself that you truly feel comfortable with, and then it gets confirmed by a third party. That's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, the only person that you should potentially be relying on to give you hard advice is someone who also has an economic interest in the deal. Who's, if you're putting up the capital, like, it is your responsibility. Or if you're raising capital, it is your responsibility to truly, truly, truly understand the value of the property to the best of your ability. Most hard money lenders only lend locally in their markets because it's an area that they know or an area that they can learn. And it takes time to do so. It's not just the legal side and having boots on the ground if the property defaults. Like, that's obviously important, but it's understanding the hard asset that we're lending against. That's what this model is about in lending. And like, keep in mind, a lot of folks will look at our deals, even with a big down payment for a good borrower, and they'll be like, man, that deal's kind of risky. And it's like, but if you know the area, like really, really, really know the area on it, you have a lot of, you can, in essence, be significantly more conservative if you understand kind of what you're lending against. So it's important. We were talking to a guy the other day. It was interesting. We were talking to a guy the other day, and I was screen sharing with him. And we were going through MLS. We were going through some public record stuff. We were going through land records, right? So in essence, I could see the deed of trust of the mortgage and the assignments, rents and leases, and all the recordable instruments, all the deeds. We were doing some like Google Street views. And in essence, like, we were spending real time on underwriting the collateral and understanding the situation that the borrower or the previous seller was going through. It's like, oh, the seller bought it for this property. It's assessed at this, then it's assessed at this. The reason we can't do a 1 mile radius search in this particular neighborhood is because it overlaps in two school systems in two different counties. So we got to do a polygon search. And, this particular property was outside a neighborhood that had had these size this. So we can't really do a per square footage because this property was built in the 60s and the rest of them were built in the 90s, right? So we were underwriting, right? We're lenders. You have to underwrite as a lender, right? You have to think of yourself as a lender. We wear lots of different hats as a lender. So we're going through all that stuff, and this guy's like, man, that seems like a lot of work. And I was like, is it? You're lending $300,000 on this property, of your own money on this property. Is it a lot of work to spend 15 or 20 minutes per file underwriting them properly to determine how much you want to lend on? When's if you were going to go buy a business for $300,000? Would you just be like, and the seller came up to you and said, hey, I'm selling this business to you for $300,000. It's a great deal, and you should buy it at $300,000. Let's shake hands right now, and it's yours. And that was your whole due diligence. And I know this is silly to think about, and Chris is smirking, laughing, and we kind of both have a smile on our face if you're watching this, but it's true, and it's comical that this is happening on a regular basis. Like, you're an underwriter. Start freaking underwriting and protecting your interest on these things and take it seriously. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you get 10 leads a day, you should be going into full detail on all of them. I'm talking about the ones that, when you're committed to lend on and proceed, and you've already had a verbal quote to the borrower based on a certain loan amount, and they agreed to your terms and they're ready to proceed, start underwriting and really, really understanding the value.
Yeah. During that same conversation we were having with this lender, we were like, some of this is doing basically online detective work about the property, about the borrower. You have a lot of tools you can access, right? Like the public record stuff, tax record, MLS, case search, even see if they have any, sketchy criminal stuff going on, like all kinds of things that one might call detective work, but it's really just proper loan underwriting. And yeah, 15, 20, 30 minutes is not a huge amount of time when you're outlaying hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. Moving on to the next one. The third super common mistake that we see new lenders make is that they're not marketing for deals. And I'll tell you why that's important. If you're playing your cards right, marketing goes on down the line and equals portfolio quality. Now, what do I mean by that? If you have, we use examples like this a lot. Like, if you have 5 deals to look at this week and Jason has 50, who's going to end up with better deals? And I'm not even saying more deals. I'm saying better deals. Why? Because you can be selective. You can quote the loan amounts you're comfortable with. You can quote the points and rate that is going to be a good profit margin. And you can do so confidently because you have 10 new leads every day, right? Whereas on the other side of things, if you don't have marketing in place, you're just looking at past clients and some referrals here and there, and you're probably not quoting loans with that kind of confidence because you only have a few people you lend to. You don't want to piss them off. You don't want to lose a deal, all of that stuff.
No doubt. I mean, 90+% of the day, our entire operation is working on marketing and generating business,
marketing and sales
and over. Like, let's be honest. If you've been if you're an experienced lender and you've done this and you have a deal that's like already committed and ready to go, it doesn't take a ton of time for you and your staff to work on each individual file. You have systems in place, you have processes in place to do that. I'm not saying it doesn't take any time. It does take some time, but a lot of these deals are widgets. They're kind of the same scenarios, throughout, right? Okay, I'm going to order this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to review this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this to close. Like, it's about having good opportunities all the time, and whoever has the most opportunities is going to have the best portfolio. I'm not saying the most amount of deals, the best portfolio. It could turn in the most amount of deals too. And too many lenders will say, well, I'm not ready to market yet because I don't have enough capital. If I get more deals, it's like, okay, well, guess what? You're just gonna have better deals then. Forget the capital side. And I mean, the capital will come, but it's all about deal quality and the more and more and more deals. Like, there's too many lenders that aren't spending time on marketing. They think it's like, I don't know, just something that's they don't have to take seriously. It's a business. Like, what happens if I opened a store with the best chocolate in the entire world in the middle of a desert and nobody would ever find me? Like, I got to get people to my store. I have the best chocolate of all time. Like, I'd have to market to get people there. And I'd have to market because it doesn't matter how good your product is or your service or anything, or you can be the best hard money lender. If nobody knows about you, nobody's ever going to find you. You got to market on a regular basis. But it's marketing's overwhelming, and I get it. And if you've heard kind of how, like, a lot of the campaigns we have in place, it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming to me because every day, like right before this podcast, I was talking to one of our web guys about some of the upgrades that we're doing, in some of our online channels. And it does give me anxiety because it's like very, very overwhelming. So you start slow, you pick one campaign, you work on it, and then you do the next one, right? Like, hey, this week, go get your email database set up and put everybody from all your past clients and everybody that in the real estate industry in there. And then start doing one email every Thursday. There you go. That's a marketing campaign.
Great way to start.
And then after that's all set up and put together, okay, let's go do the next thing. Let's go to, one RIA group a month, one RIA group a week, or whatever it is, whatever one you want to do, and autopilot that. And either you continue to do it yourself, find somebody inside your operation to do it, outsource it, buy software for it, pay somebody to do it, whatever the case is. But like, you can't. Typically, what's happening and what we've seen with a lot of lenders, they don't start marketing until they get big enough where, like, all their referral database and all the people that they know of have dried up and they've already doing enough deals for them. And then it's like, oh, well, we need to expand. I got to go market. It's like, you need to market day one, like any other business in the entire world. This is a real business. This is real. You have to market.
Yeah. Speaking of which, our next monthly training that's going to come up in July, we're going deep on the marketing stuff that we're doing right now. We're going to have a presentation by Shane Powers, our marketing guy, we've known him for a long time, but specifically has been working with us for the past year. So we're going to go through exactly what we're doing. So that'll be an interesting look behind the scenes a little bit. If you haven't done so already, go check out hardmoneymastermind.com. You can look into the online mastermind, also live events. If you want, you can schedule a time to talk to Dave Bauer, our program director. He can walk you through available stuff coming up. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. We'll see everyone here next time, Private Lenders Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.